The DOJ has finally released the affidavit used to justify and secure a search warrant of Donald Trump's home. Within this affidavit, there is startling revelations, damning new information. I'm going to jump right in and show you. For instance, this document you can see on your screen, which reads, information in the affidavit could be used to identify many, if not all, of these witnesses. For example, redacted. That's it. It's all just redacted. Page after page after page of nothing but just blacked out lines. Great. So we learned a whole lot of nothing, but in it, actually, we did learn something kind of interesting. What Trump apparently had was not nuclear documents like the left keeps screaming about, nor does it appear to be Russiagate information to expose the deep state. Maybe one of these things, I don't know. Maybe the FBI's lying. It says like newspaper clippings, magazines, personal memos, and a spattering of intermingled classified documents. Really? Oh man, here it is. It sounds more like Donald Trump had a box of garbage. No joke. It sounds like Donald Trump, when he was moving out of the White House, somebody grabbed a bunch of boxes and threw a bunch of papers in boxes without going through anything, brought them to Mar-a-Lago, and then over the past year or so, they've been talking to Trump like, hey, we want to know what documents you have. And Trump was like, yeah, come on down. See, I don't know, whatever. And they went down there like, I think there's some classified stuff in here. And Trump was like, okay, well, I don't know. And then they were like, you better lock that cabinet. And he was like, okay, I guess. And then I think the FBI is the one who actually provided the lock. Then they showed up later, bashing the lock in, storming into the place and taking back a box of garbage. I'm not kidding. Some have speculated that it was just like random documents Trump may have been keeping to like write a memoir or something. This makes me think the whole thing is political. Seriously, the whole thing, I think, is political. They're doing this right before the midterm. I've talked quite a bit about, the FBI refusing to investigate the Hunter Biden laptop, according to some whistleblowers, because they didn't want to interfere in an election. But here we are. They could have called up Trump, and it really does seem like, even according to the affidavit, they could have been like, Mr. Trump, we'd like those boxes. And he would have been like, okay, you can have the boxes. Instead, we get this drawn out, weird, fake battle where ultimately they just search his home with a warrant and try and do it in secret. Yeah, classified documents. Let me just point out, according to PolitiFact, the president has broad declassification powers. He is the end-all be-all of declassification. However, they may try and claim, well, the things that are in there were not specifically, explicitly declassified by the president because it was a box of garbage. Is that how they get him? Donald Trump accidentally grabs a bunch of papers and a bunch of boxes, and then a year or 2 years later, they're like, aha, you accidentally. Yep, that's what they do. So I was talking about last night with that guy, Adam Johnson. He's the podium guy from January 6th. It was a lectern. We all know, but they call him podium guy. And he was talking about how people went to prison for ghost drugs, where it's like you didn't actually do anything. You talked about doing something and now you're in prison because of it. No joke. That conspiracy to commit a crime. Is this how they're really going to try and stop Trump from running? The best they could muster up was that he had a spattering of old documents, papers, and other garbage. Seems like it. Now, the unit, according to Real Clear Investigations, that led this search was the same unit that ran the Russiagate investigation, which turned out to be fake. And it turned out that there was fabricated evidence used to justify spying on the Trump campaign. So, forgive me if I don't believe this is legitimate. Let's read the story. But my friends, before we get started, normally I'd shout out Timcast.com, but we have something else to shout out. Hey, look, it's me, and I'm wearing the same clothes I always wear, and I'm singing a song. Timcast Records has officially released its first single, Only Ever Wanted. It is a song I wrote, produced by Carter Banks. In the description below is a link. Please click it and buy the song on Apple Music, because we are trying to, admittedly, just dominate the cultural spaces that the institutions have dominated for a long time. The Daily Wire is doing it with movies. We're going to start producing lots of music. Go to timcastrecords.com if you want to see the full display of wherever you can find it. But really, if you guys all went out and bought it on Apple Music, we would be charting, and first of all, it would be a dream come true. Obviously, I've been playing music my whole life. But really what I want to do with everything over at timcast.com is build culture. if you want to win a culture war, you have to build culture. That's why we're not launching just endless political shows. We have a political show. We talk politics here. We need your help to create a community and a parallel culture to go along with a parallel economy so that people who work in Hollywood, Daily Wire just hired their new CMO from Disney. This is what we want to do. With your help as members at timcast.com, we are going to do things like this. Now, for 69 cents, you can go to Apple Music, pick up the single, and if we sell enough, then we're gonna force them to discuss who we are, what it is we do, and why we are becoming a cultural presence. Already they're forced to talk about the Daily Wire. Ben Shapiro walked around a podcast convention, and everybody lost their mind. Did you see this? Crazy. But it's because the Daily Wire is taking over. We're not too far off, not nearly as big as they are. But we're going to start putting out a lot of music as fast as we can, the best that we can. Click the link in the description below. Seriously, would love your support. You can pick up the song again at 69 cents, or you can go to timcastrecords.com. Let's get back to the news and talk about why it's important to talk about. Trump had 184 classified documents, 67 confidential, 25 top secret, and files that could have compromised human intelligence at Mar-a-Lago. Redacted DOJ affidavit says FBI raid was sparked by probable cause evidence of obstruction would be found. I don't know if that's the case, that they ultimately found it. But hold on there a minute. Remember when the Washington Post came out and said Donald Trump had nuclear documents? And then the left started screaming that Donald Trump was going to be selling nuclear secrets to Russia? Yeah, that wasn't true, was it? Turns out the National Archives, they were like, hey, Donald Trump has a bunch of boxes and there's stuff in there. And so the FBI was like, okay. And then they went to a judge and said, we want to get this stuff. The funny thing is Trump was cooperating. It really does sound to me like from what you can read in the affidavit that they could have just called Trump and said, we need those boxes now. And Trump would have been like, oh, okay, fine, whatever. Instead, this was showier. I don't know, though. Maybe it'll backfire. Sometimes I think their real goal is to help Trump get elected because making him the victim and a martyr is improving his polling. The Daily Mail reports. The DOJ says in the document that 14 out of the 15 boxes retrieved earlier in the year had classified information. So hold on there a minute, my friends. Does that mean you just took a box from Trump that didn't have classified information? You just took his stuff? Well, they took his passports. They say with a newly unsealed breakdown revealing the amount of high-level secret information that was kept in a basement, storage room, and other facilities at the President's Club. The FBI also conducted the search, fearing that the release of classified documents could compromise clandestine human sources. Based on my training and experience, I know that documents classified in these levels typically contain NDI, according to the signing agent's affidavit, using the acronym for National Defense Information. Several of the documents also contained what appears to be former POTUS's handwritten notes. The affidavit describes the classification markings that agents saw after a prolonged letter battle with Trump's lawyers to gain access to the 15 boxes of materials. Here's what's interesting. Some have actually predicted that this was the president's daily briefing. The president gets, here's some information for you, Trump, and then he writes some memos. It's okay, puts them in a box. When he's leaving, he's like, I'm going to take my notes with me. But those notes may actually contain confidential information. Here's a tweet from Richard Grinnell. This is way too much redaction. Revealing a source or method is the only reason to redact. This is done by redacting words, not paragraphs. Intel agencies have created a crisis of confidence. Greg Price tweeted, this is the government's memo explaining the reason they had to make redactions, the affidavit explaining why they raided a former president's home. As you can see, it explains so much. This is fascinating. Just tons of pages. Here's one page. It says, these concerns are particularly compelling in this case, as explained in the affidavit. Redacted, 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 which is the whole page. Then at the bottom it says, in short, the government has well-founded concerns that steps may be taken to frustrate or otherwise interfere with this investigation if facts in the affidavit were prematurely disclosed. In short, there's a huge long thing. You didn't explain anything. The next document, it says if witnesses' identities are exposed, they could be subjected to harms, including retaliation, intimidation, or harassment, and even threats to their physical safety, as the court has already noted. These concerns are not hypothetical in this case. Well, hold on there a minute. Could it actually be that this was, at least some of it, pertaining to Russiagate? Donald Trump announced that he had declassified Crossfire Hurricane. This was the investigation into Trump-Russia collusion that turned out to be false. Could it be that there were witnesses involved in that? Trump had their information and was going to say something? Could it be that the memos and other things included in this box weren't just garbage? Some are alleging just that. I don't know for sure, but some are alleging just that. In the probable cause statement of the affidavit, it reads, on February 9th, 2022, the special agent in charge of NARA's Office of the Inspector General sent the NARA referral via email, that's the National Archives, to the DOJ. The NARA referral stated that according to NARA's White House Liaison Division Director, a preliminary review of 15 boxes indicated they contained newspapers, magazines, printed news articles, photos, miscellaneous printouts, notes, presidential correspondence, and personal and post-presidential records, and a lot of classified records. Of most significant concern was that highly classified records were unfolded, intermixed with other records, and otherwise improperly identified. So it sounds like they said, you got to secure these. He said, okay, put a lock on it. On February 18th, the archivist of the U.S., chief administrator of NARA, stated in a letter to Congress's Committee on Oversight and Reform, Chairwoman Carolyn B. Maloney, NARA had ongoing communications with the reps of the former president throughout 2021, which resulted in the transfer of 15 boxes to NARA in January of 2022. NARA has identified items marked as classified national security information within the boxes. The letter stated that because NARA identified classified information in the boxes, NARA staff has been in communication with the Department of Justice. So he gave them back? What is this? The letter was made publicly available at the following uniform resource locator. Are you serious, guys? At the following uniform resource locator URL. That's what they do. On February 18th, the same day, the Save America Political Action Committee posted the following statement on behalf of POTUS. The National Archives did not find anything they were given upon request. Presidential records in an ordinary and routine process to ensure the preservation of my legacy and in accordance with the Presidential Records Act. And then redacted page. It's all redacted. According to CBS Miami article titled Moving Trucks Spotted at Mar-a-Lago, published Monday, January 18, 2021, at least 2 moving trucks were observed at the premises. Then redacted, and oh, there's a big redacted, probably a photograph. Redacted, another page redacted. Provision of the 15 boxes to NARA, more redacted. So are they saying that Trump gave them the boxes? They found confidential top secret stuff in it, so they raided Trump's house to try and find more? And now they're reporting that he had this because he gave them up? They say on or about May 6, NARA made a request for the missing PRA records and continued to make requests until approximately late December 2021, when NARA was informed 12 boxes were found and ready for retrieval at the premises. Okay. From May 16th, 18th, 2022, FBI agents conducted a preliminary review of the 15 boxes provided to NARA and identified documents with classification markings in 14 of the 15 boxes. A preliminary triage of the documents with classification markings revealed the following approximate numbers. So this we read already, the 184 documents. So Trump had already given them up. Okay. And there's handwritten notes. The rest is all redacted. And then in the second such letter, which is attached, Trump's counsel asked the DOJ to consider a few principles, which include counsel's one's claim that the president has absolute authority to declassify documents. In this letter, counsel one requested, among other things, that the DOJ provide this letter to any judicial officer who is asked to rule on any motion pertaining to this investigation or on any application made in connection with any investigation request concerning the investigation. I am aware of an article published by Breitbart on May 5th, available at this URL, which states that Kash Patel, who is described as a former top POTUS administration official, characterized as misleading reports in other news organizations that NARA had found classified materials among records that POTUS provided to NARA from Mar-a-Lago. Patel alleged that such reports were misleading because POTUS had declassified the materials at issue. Redacted. So what? So did he? They say he can't? They say on June 8th, 2022, DOJ counsel sent POTUS Counsel 1 a letter which reiterated that the premises are not authorized to store classified information and requested the preservation of the storage room. Donald Trump can declassify whatever he wants. PolitiFact reported that. And it's just all redacted, so we don't know. What argument could they possibly have to claim the president does not have the right to declassify this stuff? Conclusion. Based on the foregoing facts and circumstances, I submit that probable cause exists to believe that evidence, contraband, fruits of crime, or other items illegally possessed in violation will be found at the premises. Further, I submit this affidavit supports probable cause for a warrant to search the premises described in attachment and seize items described in attachment B. Trump had already given up the documents that they used as evidence to raid his home. I'm sorry, my friends. It really does feel like we're headed towards a civil war or a revolution. You know, maybe civil war is too optimistic. But I always want to stress, none of this would be necessary if we were losing. If they were winning, they would not need to raid Trump's home. They'd need simply sit back and say, we won. But they're panicked and they're desperate, and this is insane. If Trump had already given the boxes up, then what were they raiding? A fishing expedition, quite literally. Is that what it's saying? Look, I may be missing something. I'm not going to pretend to be a legal expert, and it is redacted. But it sounds like what they're saying is that in January, Trump gave up the boxes. They looked through them and then said, well, there's classified stuff in here. He said he didn't have it. I bet he's got more. Kash Patel pointed out that he can classify whatever he wants. From Real Clear Investigations. The FBI division overseeing the investigation of former President Trump's handling of classified materials at his Mar-a-Lago residence is also a focus of Special Counsel Durham's investigation into the Bureau's alleged abuses of power and political bias during its years-long Russiagate probe of Trump. The FBI's 9-hour, 30-agent raid of former president's Florida estate is part of a counterintelligence case run out of Washington, not Miami, and has been widely reported, according to FBI case documents and sources with knowledge of the matter. The Bureau's counterintelligence division led the 2016-2017 Russia collusion investigation of Trump, codenamed Crossfire Hurricane. Interesting. Yeah, elements of the government are fighting each other. I don't know, call that whatever you want. Although the former head of Crossfire Hurricane, Peter Strzok, was fired after disclosure of his vitriolic anti-Trump tweets, several members of his team remain working in the counterintelligence unit. The sources say even though they're under active investigation by both Durham and the Bureau's disciplinary arm, the Office of Professional Responsibility, the FBI declined to respond to questions about any role they may be taking in the Mar-a-Lago case. In addition, a key member of the Crossfire team, Supervisory Intelligence Analyst Brian Auten, has continued to be involved in politically sensitive investigations, including the ongoing federal probe of potentially incriminating content found on the abandoned laptop of President Biden's son, Hunter Biden, according to recent correspondence between the Senate Judiciary Committee and FBI Director Christopher Wray. FBI whistleblowers have alleged that Auten tried to falsely discredit derogatory evidence against Hunter Biden during the 2020 campaign by labeling it Russian disinformation, an assessment that caused investigative activity to cease. Auten has been allowed to work on sensitive cases, even though he has been under internal investigation since 2019, when Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz referred him for disciplinary review for his role in vetting a Hillary Clinton campaign-funded dossier used by the FBI to obtain a series of wiretap warrants to spy on former Trump campaign advisor Carter Page. Horowitz singled out Auten for cutting a number of corners in the verification process and even allowing information he knew to be incorrect slip into warrant affidavits and mislead the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act court. Well then, that's a mouthful to say the least. In congressional testimony this month, Wray confirmed that a number of former Crossfire Hurricane team members are still employed at the Bureau while undergoing disciplinary review. In the meantime, Wray has walled off the former Russiagate investigators only from participating in FISA wiretap applications, according to sources. Sounds like something dirty is going on. Sounds like something very dirty is going on. The left is coming out right now. I'm seeing the memes and they're like, Trump had 300 nuclear documents. It's just like, bro, do you read the news? That is not true. The Washington Post reported, and this is the big problem with these institutions. The Washington Post reported that the agents were looking for nuclear documents. That's not what they were looking for. They were fishing. They said, well, these documents had confidential stuff, so we figured there may be more. Obstruction of justice, perhaps. Not nuclear documents. This is why we do what we do at Timcast.com. I don't know what else to say, man. We have a news team. Our news articles don't make money. Fact. We have a news team because we want to counter the lies. We produce comedy at Cast Castle because we want to build culture. Tales from the Inverted World is true crime, mystery, and paranormal. True stories, mind you. Because we want to create entertainment. Chicken City, because it's fun and family friendly. We launched Timcast Records. We got to make music. Small start. But we need to put a stop to this psychosis. You know, look, man, I'm not going to pretend to be the person who's going to, pull Excalibur from the stone or whatever, or receive the stone from the lady in the lake. Was Excalibur the sword in the stone? Oh, the lady in the lake gave it to him or whatever. I'm not saying it'll be me. All I know is this. Be it you or I or anyone else, we just have to do everything we can. And I take a look at all this. I take a look at the lies and the manipulations. Every step of the way since the start of the Trump campaign. Lies. I went down and watched Trump speak, and I was like, I don't know. He was actually more moderate than Mitt Romney. Donald Trump supported gay marriage before becoming president. 4 years before this, the Republicans were trying to ban gay marriage, and they're like, Trump's far right. And I'm like, dude's a moderate. He's a New York Democrat. Jeez. I guess you can call him a New York conservative, which basically means he's in the middle. And they lied about everything. You know, I worked for some news organizations, and they told me, just side with the audience. The audience is young, progressive. This is what they do. Why did the Washington Post put out these lies about nuclear documents? Sources say. What sources? Why should I believe you? Now it turns out from the affidavit, at least for now, there's nothing in there talking about nuclear documents. At least as far as I can tell. Maybe I should just, to be fair, maybe I'm wrong. Because the word, are you kidding? The word nuclear doesn't appear anywhere in the affidavit. All right. So what is that all about? Maybe it's redacted. Yes, that's what you need left. You need this to be unredacted. That's probably it right there. Nuclear bombs. Woo. Or the Washington Post had garbage sources, didn't vet them, and published garbage. And the left comes out, and now they're memeing it because they don't read the news. How do you solve this problem? It's part of what we're doing. That's why sorry to drive it home so much, but we have 1 week to really make this fly. That's why we launched Timcast Records. That's why we launched Cast Castle. It's why I'm pushing really hard to try and get you guys to support us by buying the song on iTunes. Not that I want to support iTunes. I get it. But we have to confront the institutions in the spaces they control and take them back. Cultural, art, economic. From timcast.com, let's keep going with the story. August 22nd. Docs seized by FBI in Trump raid had info on Russiagate, former aide says. This information has to get out to the American public, said Kash Patel. On August 8th, FBI agents removed 11 sets of documents in a raid of former President Donald Trump's home. Since then, speculation swirled concerning the contents of those records and whether they contained classified information. A former national security official offered a glimpse into the material seized by the agents. It had to do with Russiagate. It had to do with the Hillary email scandal. And there it is. Let's break it all down, my friends. Trump had boxes. He handed those boxes over. They then said there was classified information in them. They then said, you know what? He's probably got more information. They then took documents that Kash Patel says were related to Russiagate. So what does this sound like? The unit that led this, the Russiagate team, justified the raid on Trump's home because Trump complied. So what? Trump should have said no about these boxes? Now you can't have them? Then they go in and take documents relating to Russiagate, according to Kash Patel. Is Kash wrong? Or is the case of rogue FBI agents panicked, desperately needing an affidavit to be able to go in and take the Crossfire Hurricane documents back? Seems to be the case. 3 days after the FBI search was conducted, U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland delivered public remarks saying the Department of Justice was open to public release of the search warrant used to conduct the raid. He also said it's standard practice to narrowly scope any search, except they were looking for any document. Sean Davis tweets, under attachment B of the FBI raid document, Garland demanded the seizure of literally any record Trump ever saw, read, or created over the entire 4-year term of his presidency. Any government and or presidential records created between January 20th, 2017 and January 20th, 2021. They say, however, attachment B of the warrant called for federal agents to confiscate any government records, we read the dates, without specifying a classification status for those documents. This gave the FBI license to take any record originated during the entirety of the Trump presidency, even non-classified or declassified documents. So here's the working theory. Donald Trump had Crossfire Hurricane evidence he wanted to release to show that there was illegal action being taken against him. That's what people believe. It certainly is in the realm of possibility that FBI agents are panicked about what might happen if they get caught. So they had to go in and take the documents, or at least try and learn what Trump had. Because I'd be willing to bet that any document Trump had, there's probably copies of it. I would be surprised if Trump was just like, only paper copies. We don't want anything digital. We want it to be here. I really doubt it. But maybe I wouldn't be surprised. He's an old guy. Federal agents said the boxes they removed contained classified material. But according to Patel, this is all declassified. Speaking on, we had a show on Timcast IRL, and we had Derek Harvey on with Jack Posobiec. And what Harvey said is that he thinks that there was information in those documents that was damning to the intelligence agencies, and they had to get them back. Some legal experts argued the president's declassification process must follow certain established procedures required by other federal workers and agencies. But others state that the president has plenary declassification authority, meaning the president can declassify any document at any time by any means. And yes, that last part has to be true. The other argument that Trump has to go through a process, I'd imagine, is sophistry. It's a manipulation to try and condemn Trump. Why? If Trump sits down with Vladimir Putin, if Biden does, and Vladimir Putin says, I know that you are running fake campaign on Russian social media. You stop doing it, I stop doing it too. And then Biden would be like, well, listen here, Jack, I can't tell you anything about it because it's classified. So can't negotiate. What? No, of course he can. How insane would that be as the commander-in-chief? He's got to be like, okay, Putin, I'll tell you what. We'll agree. De-escalate the information war against each other. We'll stop if you stop. Okay. How insane would it be if the president was negotiating a nuclear arms treaty with Vladimir Putin and he says, we have nuclear weapons in Ukraine. We take them out. And then Joe Biden's like, okay, in exchange, we'll take our nuclear weapons out of, well, I can't tell you, it's classified. Of course Joe Biden can. It's just absurd on its face to say anything else. They're trying to argue that there is an authority above the president for discussing matters of national security. He is the executive branch, the commander-in-chief. That's the purpose. Timcast.com says the argument for plenary declassification was upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court in its 1988 decision in the Department of Navy v. Egan, when the court said the president's authority to declassify and control access to information bearing on national security flows primarily from this constitutional investment of the power in the president and exists quite apart from any explicit congressional grant. Patel accused the DOJ of conducting the raid to prevent the release of information Trump declassified related to the DOJ investigation of whether Trump had ties to Russia. The investigation carried out by Mueller found no evidence of collusion. Perhaps Trump miscalculated. Perhaps Trump was expecting to release this in October. Perhaps Donald Trump was going to announce he was running for president with a spicy October surprise right before the midterms. And the reason the feds got so desperate and came in is because they had to get that evidence away from him. They're all maybes. I really don't know. The left will tell you that Trump stole nuclear documents. That's not even in the affidavit. The right is saying that this was Crossfire Hurricane documents. Honestly, can't tell you. What I can say is for the FBI to do something like this right before an election is outright election interference, period. That's it. For the FBI to order their agents and officials not to investigate Hunter Biden's laptop, it's obvious, isn't it? They're electioneering. They're manipulating our elections. It's a scary thought, to say the least, but this is the reality of where we're at. Politics, man. I've talked about over the past several years how the culture war will eventually reach the highest levels of government, and here we are. I have talked to people who work in government. We have had people on the show who are former and current contractors with the feds, and people don't like them because most of our audience is fairly libertarian, and they're like, feds, bleh. And what they tell us, inside these agencies, it is as divided as outside. When you look to the world and you see the culture war, when you see left and right and all of that stuff, the same thing exists within the FBI as it does everywhere else. That's the important reality that people need to contend with. And what that means is There are FBI agents who are going to be unwilling to speak up because they're going to see that if they speak up, they'll lose their jobs. They're going to see that these other agents will turn on them. And like all of the other people in mainstream reality, or whatever you want to call it, out in the real world, terrified to speak up because of the consequences of going up against the cult, agents within these institutions are feeling the exact same way. We cannot live this way. There have been whistleblowers from the FBI. They've come out, they've spoken up. And for this, we now know several things. One, Veritas released information that they consider the Gadsden flag, the Gonzalez flag, the Betsy Ross flag as symbols of extremism. And that the FBI top brass was instructing their agents not to investigate the Hunter Biden laptop. Meanwhile, they're going after Project Veritas now over Ashley Biden's diary. They're going after Donald Trump's home. And it's getting particularly scary, man. Rumors circulating that Gavin McInnes has been arrested live during his show, and we don't know for what or for why. Maybe it didn't happen. We don't know. And everybody reported on those rumors because if they are true, it is a dangerous and dramatic escalation of the culture war into something far more nefarious. Maybe all of our efforts in the cultural space is for naught. I certainly hope not. But I do know one thing. I worked in nonprofits. My goal was to go up to people on the street doing that, hey, how's it going? Convince them to give me money. And you know what doesn't work on most people? Here's what they want you to do. They want you to go up to someone and say, hi, I'm so-and-so. My name's Tim and I work for a nonprofit. And we're here to tell you about problem. Problem is trees. And then they want you to give the pitch and then say, with your $20, you'll be able to save trees. I can tell you first outright, doesn't work. And that's why so many people struggled with it. It worked. Targeting the person. Speaking to them on their level. I'd always explain to people, you see a guy in a suit and you walk up to him like, sup, dude? Yeah, let's talk about trees, bruh. He's going to be like, no. You see a guy in a suit and you say, sir, but a moment of your time. Shake his hand, just reach right to shake his hand and say, let me tell you about a problem we're facing and how you're going to be the one to solve it. I would always tell people, speak to them like you're speaking to someone for the first time. Don't be a robot. And I think about that with everything we're doing. How do you win the culture war? Here's my dream. And I wish somebody else could do it. But I know the world is not, you do not succeed based on waiting for someone else to get the job done. I would love nothing more to live in a van down by the river. I said it on Joe Rogan's podcast. Get me a van, go live down by the river. So what needs to happen is, you do not approach regular people by walking up with a MAGA hat on and a Trump flag and saying, Donald Trump, he's going to save us. Because they're going to say, I don't know, dude. You walk up to them and say, dude, did you watch the MMA match? Check this out. You ask them, have you been watching the new Marvel show? This is why we did Pop Culture Crisis. Because we have liberty-minded individuals. We have values. But we want to create a space for people in the way they perceive the world. That's the whole point. Hopefully it's not too late and we can win this one. If you want to support us, go to timcastrecords.com, click the link in the description below, buy the song on Apple because you sell enough of these things, you hit the charts, and then we're going to force these outlets to be like, how is this possible? How are these, the Daily Wire's pulling it off with these movies? I hope we can do the same with music. And other content. I'll leave it there. Next segment is tonight at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimcastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.